I'm Monica Huntsberry. I'm an advisor for RevelEleven. With me on the line is Monica Smith. Monica.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Monica Smith is a co-creator for RevelEleven, and we really have aspired to develop a platform where women can gather for just real conversations, sometimes edgy conversations, and be in community about things that it can sometimes be hard to find a community or group to talk about. And the parenting series is no exception. Just last month, I had I had the honor of dropping my youngest off at college. And while I was sad to enter into this period of empty nest, I was also grateful that colleges are open right now. And I also realized that, I have a lot that I want to give back. Because as a mom, I was often caught in the trap of guilt and shame and not enough, especially as my years of single mom. And one of the women that I have been following for a long time that really inspires me, even to offer my younger self grace, and I'll get all emotional now, is Christine. And Christine is a powerhouse. You're going to hear from her today. Just to tell you a little bit about Christine Michel Carter. She has been featured in the New York Times and Washington Post, and is the author of one of the best-selling books that I love, Can Mommy Go to Work? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. She also is the author of the adult version novel, Mommy AF. We say adult, and there's a reason why. And she also created the first national Mommy and Me professional development networking event called Mompreneur and Me. I love that, which was features in Adweek and Entrepreneur. She's also worked with the Congressional Caucus on Black women and girls, the U.S. Department of Labor, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on maternal and childcare needs. And, the list of work she has to do is long, and she has a lot of tremendous energy, and we're here to cheer her on and also ask her questions and also find out how we can continue to support the work and the initiatives she's doing. So with that, Christine, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And Natalie, thank you so much for being so nice about putting a chat about the book. I really appreciate that. And you have my favorite name. That's my daughter's middle name. Just want to make sure I shout it out, Natalie.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, Christine, we have a lot of questions today for you, and feel free to also ad hoc and throw in anything else that you'd like to share. But first of all, I'm just curious, what inspired you to write, Can Mommy Go to Work? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So when I was growing up, my grandmother recognized how much I enjoyed writing, and I didn't get a chance to fulfill a dream that she had for me, which was to write a children's book with her before she passed. So I always knew I wanted to write Mom AF, but I knew I had an obligation to my grandmother to write a children's book first. So keeping that family spirit, I asked my children to help me write Can Mommy Go to Work? And I really wanted to make a book that taught children the importance of their mothers being in the workplace, if they're stay-at-home moms, the importance of them being the leader in the household and the household manager and keeping everything running, just the importance of women in leadership roles. And the kids just had a great time writing the book with me and picking out their costumes and working with the illustrator. And it was a labor of love. And now we look back and we can say that we wrote a book together. But I never expected the book to be as popular as it has become mid-pandemic, because so many mothers are now faced with the task of juggling motherhood 24/7, and we get no break from schools because the kids are being homeschooled, and they had to figure out a way to have those conversations with kids who are about 3 to 5 years old, which is the audience for the book, about why I need you to give me 15 minutes to have a conference call. So that was the inspiration.
Well, it certainly is relevant and relatable, and I'm glad that people are finding it to be valuable and a tool that they can use to have conversations with their children. The topic of working moms is big, and there are many different layers of it. One of the recent statistics said that only 30% of mothers believe it's possible to combine work, career, and motherhood. And so, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that mothers are facing? And if you want to share some of the work you're advocating around that, that would be great.
Sure. So that figure is based off of total moms. The number actually goes up when you look at the data by Black moms, which is actually kind of interesting to me because they're the ones who are disproportionately affected by the pandemic, yet they still remain the most optimistic. But in general, all moms are facing the caregiving challenges. Many of us are in the sandwich generation, caring for older family members as well as children. We have a childcare shortage right now. We have a nursing shortage, which affects us as well. Teachers are leaving, and we're talking about 3 roles where women have a predominant presence. So we're losing empathy. Our children are losing empathy, and that's something to be concerned about as they get older. We have to juggle work and motherhood right now, and employers have bottom lines. They have to hit margins, and they have investor calls, and they're not concerned about us as much as they illustrate, I would say. So we're all juggling demanding work hours. We're juggling taking care of the household as the person who is responsible for just the administrative tasks around the house, as well as in some cases the finances. The divorce rate has never been higher. Single motherhood has never been higher. Our mental health is suffering quite a bit. There's just so much on our plate right now, and I can personally say, as a mother, there's so much on my plate that the idea of being optimistic is quite difficult. Even though I am a Black mom, it's really hard to be optimistic, especially when you look at the news every day and we still don't have a national paid leave policy, and the crisis with childcare is still going on. So I think that a lot of women, that 30% of optimism is coming from maybe something will happen, but I don't have time to be optimistic about that. I got to get the stuff done around the house.
Yeah, no, that's a fair view. And I want to unpack some of the data you shared and some of the information. So you talked specifically about Black moms and single moms, and we know that both of those groups are, traditionally most affected and underserved. If people are looking for ways to be better support or allies to Black moms or single moms, what do you encourage?
Sure. So when it comes to being in the workplace, I just encourage transparency. A lot of women aren't aware of preferences or perks that their colleagues are getting. They're also not aware of salaries that could be salaries amongst their peers, as well as available roles. They may not necessarily know how to navigate the organization from a networking perspective as well, because that's something that is also culturally different. So as being just a part of being an ally is just being transparent and sharing communication, oversharing as much as you can within the workplace. And then recognizing that there's always the opportunity to learn as an ally or mentor. So that's a mutually beneficial relationship if you're advocating for Black mothers in the workplace or single moms. And then in just everyday life personally, a lot of women right now are just struggling with needing empathy and understanding, and specifically Black moms look for a community online. So you don't even necessarily need to go knock on anybody's door. You could just see a Black mom in a Facebook group and ask them how they're doing, and just let them know you're there to listen, or any type of words of wisdom or encouragement you can offer. And that, again, is the case for Black moms online. But just remember that all moms right now, that statistic that you stated is from the State of Motherhood survey from Motherly, and it specifically says there are areas where mothers are looking for support right now, and one of the biggest is just a little bit of empathy and compassion for us.
I agree. I see you. I hear you, you matter, right? All of those statements are important. I know too, I was a single mom for many years, and during that time, there's a difference between empathy and pity, right?
Right.
And single moms are strong moms, right?
Yes.
They do a lot, and they're capable of a lot. But I think things like even just if you have a single mom or a mom in your community who might need a little extra support, offering to transport children, offering to host a play date at your house and not looking for reciprocation, right? Those were some of the things that can really alleviate, a day in a life, just giving mom a Saturday afternoon off, right?
Right. Like as a single mom, I'm going to tell you, like, I don't want your husband. My kids aren't running around dirty. I'm not a frazzled mess. I have it very together, more so together than when I was married. Okay. My husband was the ball and chain on my leg. So it's reach out, I have no issue with that. I would love as a single mother to have a community and just know that there were folks there for me, because that is probably one of the biggest challenges as a single mom, is that you just feel so alone. And I mean, that's motherhood right now. Unfortunately, overall, it's so easy to feel isolated and feel like you're alone in the middle of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about you and how you've dealt with some things, because I think sometimes you sharing your story can give others hope as we talk about hope, and also give others ideas on ways for them to be resourceful. And again, I invite the audience to feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll go ahead and also put the link to the survey that Christine referenced in the chat. But one of the things you and I have talked about a little bit, Christine, is judgment, right? And especially, you have a very brave voice on social media, which is not an easy feat, because there is a lot of judgment, and in social groups, there's also just a lot of judgment and stigma in general. We're, comparing ourselves to the mom next door, whatever that might be. Tell me a little bit about how you've learned to face some either judgment, self-criticism, and what you recommend for other mothers struggling with that.
Sure. So my biggest recommendation is just to remember who you're communicating with, and remember who you're writing for, and remember your why. And my why is really to make mothers feel confident and understood. Everybody outside of that, and I know that we're on live Facebook, so I won't curse, but everybody outside of that, I could care less about what they think about my writing. So I remember before President Trump was elected, I wrote a lot of articles about how he had no chance in hell with Black millennial moms. And I stated all of the reasons why, historically, why he has underserved us. And then I wrote articles about the civil unrest and how white mothers, I felt bad for their Black son, because there is some instances where white moms don't recognize the dual heritage in their children. Again, all of my articles come from a place of fact and data, and I just add anecdotes here and there. So again, I also don't get offended because I'm going off of facts, but I've had, around that time, I had a ton of trolls online, people saying the most hurtful things, calling me everything but a child of God, even tapped into my personal Facebook account. And I just could care less, because that's not who the people who were trolling me weren't the people I was writing for. They weren't mothers, they weren't Black, they didn't understand, they didn't have biracial children, they weren't struggling in communities and in cities where Black women were being underserved. So who cares? What right do you have to provide an opinion? And I think that that's the most important thing, is remember your audience, remember your why, and have a thick skin. Everybody loves to just shout, to seem like they're intelligent, but that's not necessarily the case.
I love that, anchoring in your truth and being really clear on your why. And that's really, I think, relevant, and one of the reasons that so many people are drawn to your platform and comments, because you are Christine, right? I love that about you.
Thank you.
Now more than ever, it seems like it's super important for mothers to have a flexible schedule. Work from home was not a thing 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago, right? And I look back and wonder, how do we all do it, right? But tell me what your views are on work from home, on flex schedules, and how we can advocate within our employers for those needs.
Yeah, I've been writing about this for Forbes Women for years, about the importance of remote work and flexible work. On my website, in fact, there's a code for Flex Jobs, and Flex Jobs is the leading talent company with remote and flexible jobs. And I highly encourage all women to take advantage of that. But I think that remote and flexible work is not only beneficial for the mother or the working parent, but also the employer, because they're actually able to get more hours out of employees than if they have to drive into the office. So when I think of working moms, I think of a woman who's probably doing 3 things at the same time. She's cooking breakfast and getting kids ready for school, but she's also on a conference call that starts at 8 a.m. Imagine how much easier her life would be if she had just a little bit extra time, like 20 or 30 minutes, to really prioritize and manage her day and manage her calendar instead of commuting to work. You know, there's nothing that a mother can't do in 10 minutes, much less 30 minutes. I'm sure there are women listening like, I can do 11 things in 30 minutes. So, and even without flexible schedules, data shows that working mothers are actually more productive than their counterparts without children. They work longer hours. We really inherently feel, the insight is, that we have something to prove. So we will work our you-know-what off for you. It just makes no sense to me, other than a big brother kind of feel, for an employer to not offer remote or flexible work, especially when this pandemic is over and you will have had employees working from home for months.
Right. No, that's very powerful. Switching topics, I want to talk to you about, how mothers navigate things that are new to them. So we've talked about how, sometimes almost every day is a first for a mother,
That's right?
There are so many first-time experiences, especially with your first child. So I'd love to hear your views on encountering something that maybe you haven't before as a mother, and how you deal with that.
Yeah, okay. So I shared this with Monica and I asked if I could share it with you guys. Somebody once said to me that you are a new mother every day. So give yourself grace and give yourself patience, because when you became a mother, you became the mother of a newborn, right? And you learn the ins and outs and the poop off your hands and the colic and all of that. And then after year 1, you're like, I got this down. And then they become a terrible 2. And you're a new mother all over again. And then they become a 3-nager, and I won't say what they call the 4s, but it's in Mom AF. And every year you're learning something new. And please give yourself grace and patience as you learn something new. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. And back then, I think that they were 8 and 4. And I thought I had everything down packed. And now I'm dealing with preteen issues, and I'm dealing with understanding your role as a young Black man in the world. It's crazy the things that I'm learning every day. And Monica, you just said you dropped your youngest off to college. I can't wait for that day, but I'll be a new mother then again. So just give yourself grace and patience.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And, you speak a lot about grace and not holding on to anger, which is also something I think powerful. Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about your views as a divorced parent, and how you edify your ex in the process of raising your children?
I absolutely do feel comfortable sharing that. I'm an open book when it comes to that. So I grew up in a single parent household. My parents divorced when I was about 9 months old, and have always had a really volatile, verbally volatile relationship, to the point where if my personality started to become something that they didn't like, not necessarily bad, but just something that was annoying for that parent, they would then compare me to their ex, or like my mother would compare me to my father. And what I decided when I got married, I had a conversation with my then husband, who came from a really rocky family too. His parents were married, but shouldn't be. we decided that no matter what happened, that we weren't going to speak ill of each other in front of our children. And that is something we have held on now to this day. Both of my kids, whether they want to hear about their father's greatest accomplishments or not, they hear about it because I want them, right now, the wound is still fresh about the divorce, but I want them to understand that their father was once an amazing, intelligent man. And I didn't make a mistake in having them. And I deliberately chose to have kids with that man. So I don't think that I should be speaking ill of him. And I don't think I should allow others to speak ill of him around my children either, despite our relationship post-divorce.
That is so beautiful and powerful. And that's something I really want mothers to hear who have experienced or gone through a divorce or loss. And we're getting some comments too about very powerful. Again, I really welcome questions from the audience. For Christine, you guys are being shy today.
They are.
Bring them into this, Christine. What else do you want the mothers on today's call to know?
Just have a little bit of perspective. We were discussing all of the different challenges and complications we're having right now, but the truth is it could always be worse. And I wake up every morning and I thank God that I was able to get up that morning, and I thank God for those beautiful, beautiful kids that I have behind me right now. And I just think of all of the women who aren't so fortunate, and it breaks my heart, and it makes me want to be there for them even more. But it also makes me realize the things that I call problems are absolutely ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I would just say have an empathy and compassion for your fellow mother, and try and put your issues, I'm not saying that they're not important, but just try and put them into perspective.
That's really well said. We also talked a little bit about self-care and the importance of self-care, especially for single moms. Do you want to talk about your views on that and what you encourage mothers on the topic of self-care?
Yeah, so that was a journey, right? So in Mom AF, the book is about me trying to apply business principles to my marriage and to my life, and goal setting and all that. And back then, I thought that self-care had to be a goal, and I had to make sure that I had it scheduled. And every month at a certain time, I would work on self-care. And it's so hard to not cuss. But because I'm such an honest person.
You're doing such a good job.
Thank you. But over time, I realized that when I had that on my calendar at that certain time, it was becoming a chore. And I was like, I got to get my nails done. I got to get my hair done. I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't self-care. So I had to take a step back and realize that self-care needs to be a daily thing. So even if it is literally filing my nails in the room with the door locked before I go to bed, then that's my self-care, because that's my moment to myself. So that was the first component, is that I had to realize that self-care happens every day, sometimes every hour for 1 minute of the hour. The second thing was, and I don't know that a lot of women realize this, so I think I should write an article, but self-care and delegation are very closely connected. So I can't practice self-care if my kids are asking me to open up a bottle of apple juice. I can't practice self-care if I have to help somebody find the millionth Paw Patrol toy in their room. So I had to teach my kids, and thank God for me being single and divorced, because, Monica, you probably get this more than anybody. There's only one me. I tell them this all the time. There's two of you, there's only one me. Please calm down. Please stop talking to me at the same time. Please stop asking me to do things at the same time. I need you to be independent. It's unfortunate. I need you to be more independent than other kids, but it'll pay off for you when you're older. So I had to teach my kids independence and the importance of doing chores and how to own those chores and responsibility. I had to teach that to them very early, to take things off of my plate. So then I could sit down and be like, wow, okay, what do I want to do with myself right now? Do I want to watch another episode of Star Trek? That's when self-care really happened, when I started to delegate to my kids.
Oh, I love that. And I think you should write an article about that.
I
And,
have to.
Christine is a great writer. She has many published articles out there, and we'll connect you to her website as well. But if there are article ideas that you would love her to write, feel free to include that in the chat too. Amari has a question. How do you find balance? Do you have any advice for people like me who struggle with finding and maintaining balance?
Totally. It would be the delegation thing again. I bet if I went back, Amari, and like just shadowed you for a day, there are probably a lot of things that you're doing and feeling overwhelmed by that your kids or a spouse could be doing. I often see, and this was totally me in my marriage too, and it's in Mom AF. I felt like if I didn't do it, it shouldn't be done because I would do it the best. And that's true, but sometimes things don't have to be the best, they just need to be done. So for example, my daughter is our personal chef. She really, really loves to cook. So for $20 a week, I know I'm really robbing her, I know. But for $20 a week, she makes dinner 3 nights a week. And thankfully she can cook, so she's making us like pastas and seafood dishes and whatnot. And sometimes there's a shell in the shrimp in the end dish. So what? Sometimes the rice is undercooked. So what? I'm not the one that had to make it, so I don't care. And I only pay $20, and that's chore money. So the delegation is how I find balance. And the other thing I'll say is it used to be about having it all, but now people call it balance. And I always say the only way you can have it all is to go to the grocery store and buy a bottle of all detergent, because there is no mother alive who has it all.
Oh, that's so great. You're getting lots of applause in the chat for that. And I love those specific examples. Somebody once told me, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist too, where it said, Monica, they might not do it the way you would do it, but it doesn't mean it won't get done. I was like, oh,
right.
Darn, I have to sit with that.
Exactly. And then it becomes a coaching moment, and it gets better and better and better, right? Like in 3 months, y'all, I might be eating prime rib because I just have to tweak things here and there versus being like, oh, let me do it and do it myself.
Yeah, that's great. And plus the skills you're teaching your daughter and the sense of empowerment and confidence as a result is just icing on the cake.
Yes.
Another good question, when you're feeling triggered, flooded, or just not your best self, how do you manage interactions with your kids? What a great question. Thanks, Monica.
That is such a great question. And I feel lucky and almost privileged to be a single mother because I'm so close to my children and we spend so much time together that they can tell. So my daughter is she's already gone through puberty. So my son, poor him, is stuck in the house with women who sometimes have times of the month at the same time. And he'll just go in his room and shut his door. And he's only 6. He knows he don't want to be around the women. When it comes to my daughter, she'll see me getting snappy and she'll just, sometimes if she's sitting on the couch and I'm being snappy, she'll just pat the couch cushion and just tell me to come sit down and just take a moment. And she can just feel and read my energy. And she knows that I am a caregiver for my father. I'm a single mom. Like she gets, my daughter is very, very mature in the mind. I swear she's been here before. But because we're so close, she can read me and know when I am being triggered. And she'll just tell me, she'll remind me, take a moment. How about this? How about you go in your room and we'll stay in the living room for the rest of the night. So it's very helpful to have another mini adult in the house. That's probably what keeps me from feeling triggered and pressured and lashing it out on them. Now, when they're not around, I've been in therapy enough and I know my anxiety symptoms that I know when I need a moment. So this weekend, thank God, like single mothers never get a weekend, but my mother is watching the kids. So I know that this is the best time for me to sit around in the house under the covers and do nothing because I need to recharge.
It is such a different feeling to be in your house alone, right? Mothers seldom get that experience. And I always had this big long list of things that I was going to do when my kids
right,
were gone.
and you don't do them. But it's so worth it. It is so worth it to have that recharge. And it is not the same as having them in their room with the doors closed.
It's not. I agree. because you're always thinking there's always capacity there for managing that. Along those same lines, one of the things I really respected is when I initially invited you to join us, it was for a Saturday session, and you said, "Yep, I don't work on the weekends," and I want to understand and talk to you a little bit about how you found a way to establish boundaries. And it especially was poignant to me because I had a memory of my son. Probably he was about 7, and I was working away on my computer on the weekend, and he came in the room and he's like, "Mom, aren't weekends supposed to be about taking a break from work?" And that has always sat with me. 20 years later, I still remember that. So I think it's great you're modeling that for your kids. Share a little bit about how you manage boundaries between work and life.
Yeah, so for the past 10 years, I've always been in global marketing roles, which means I could be working at 6 in the morning, or I could be getting off calls at 11 at night. So both kids, I have pictures of them in my office at 3 years old. I have a picture of my son hovering over my laptop at 2 when I was on a conference call. They get that I work. So for them to write, "Can mommy go to work with me?" was like a no-brainer. But I have a unique situation in global marketing where I am constantly working. I'm at their basketball practices and I'm on my phone, and I'm dropping them off for school and I'm listening to conference calls, and they don't understand why I don't get out the car and just network and chat with the other mothers and fathers who are waiting at the bus stop. I don't have that privilege. I don't have that luxury. I have to constantly work Monday through Friday. Because of that, they know that their Saturdays and Sundays are going to be mom filled. I'm playing Roblox. I'm cooking whatever they want. We're going to the movies. They're enjoying the spoils of me working Monday through Friday because they deserve that. Because they put up with a mother who for the past 10 years, Monday through Friday, works crazy hours. Even when we're having family movie night, sometimes Monday through Friday, I'm sitting next to them on my laptop, but I'm trying to watch the movie at the same time. So that is kind of a not mentioned secret understanding between us, that their Saturdays and Sundays, mom's not going to work. That's their time.
That's great. I'm curious, Libby, I think we answered your question about transparency with kids, about when you need moments, right? We talked a little bit about that. Any other questions from the audience, or I'll keep going through my list here?
Well, what I will say, Libby, is the transparency that I give them with my emotions pays off, because then they communicate that back to me. And it makes me raise more mature children. So I'm happy for it. I post-divorce, we all went through therapy and have our own therapists. And I found that was helpful with helping them communicate their emotions, but also in the house together, they feel comfortable enough to say, "I need a moment. I'm sad. I'm going to my room. I'm going to play on my iPad. I'll be back in a bit." And they come back and we're just as thick as thieves as usual.
Thank you. I know there are so many various conversations on the pandemic, and we intentionally chose today not to anchor on that as part of our conversation, but you're so grounded and realistic and have such, authentic conversations in the community and with your children. So I'm just curious in terms of if you've found unique ways to have conversations with your children around, what's going on, going back to school, how to feel safe, their anxieties related to the pandemic. There's a lot of conversation about that. And I'm curious around your messaging and what you're hearing and seeing.
Sure. So my kids were born, my daughter was born in 2011, but I was raised in a multi-generational household. So a lot of my parenting techniques came from somebody who was raising children in the 1940s. So I always have grace and empathy for other young mothers, but I too am an old soul and do things pretty old school. So when the pandemic hit and I saw that my children couldn't be with their friends, couldn't go outside and play, they were living the adult life with a laptop and getting on Zoom, and to see my preschooler being like, "I can't hear you, you're on mute." Oh, it broke my heart. it became very clear to me that I could give less than you know what about their grades or their attendance in school. It was really about their mental health. So when my pre-K kid said, I don't want to go to class, or he would I have a picture of this, put the laptop under his chin and have it on mute and video off so he could hear it and nap and then wake back up and go to class. I don't care, it's pre-K. You're gonna learn other things, you'll be fine. And then Maya, my oldest, my type A, my old soul, really wanted to prove herself so much. And she did, and she pushed herself, and she ended up excelling out of her math class. But at the end of the school year, and there was no pressure from me, at the end of the school year, I said to her, but how do you feel mentally? Are you drained? Are you exhausted? Was that worth it? And she was like, I honestly don't know. And I was just saying to her, have a little bit of balance, okay? We're all going through this together. You know, just as much as you see mommy losing her mind, running around, trying to get everything coordinated, try to go into the office for meetings, but still have you around. I get that you're trying to juggle a lot too. Don't feel like you have to be perfect for me. It's almost like I'm her employer and I'm saying to her, I get it. I'm gonna have grace and patience with you. But she feels like she wants to prove herself.
Oh,
But
that's
that was
so
the
great.
thing. Mental health was more important to me. I could care less about their grades. I really could.
I love that. And I also think, you know, the fact that you're allowing things to be less than perfect, whether it's your schoolwork or how everybody shows up is really important, because I think so often kids feel pressure to be perfect.
Right.
Any other comments on that topic of perfection?
Yeah, you know that, like I was saying, I'm an old school parent. That has really been my MO always. And I remember when Maya was in daycare and I was getting her out the car or something, I must have tossed her iPad with the phone to the side and got her out the car. And I just remembered like the judgment of having your child looking at an iPad at 2 and all of that. And it's like, I grew up on TV. I was watching Green Acres like every night before I went to bed on Nick at Night. So, and I'm fine. So she'll be fine. She can look at an iPad if that means that I get to get dinner on the table or I get to spend some time by myself. It's just there just seems to be, again, amongst my generation, this pressure to be perfect, and social media obviously plays a part in that, and the rise of mom influencers and the rise of these perfectly curated feeds to show that you're living the best #mom life. And I could never get behind that. I just don't believe in being a perfect mother. I don't think it exists. You're just a present mother. You're just a mother. You don't have to be perfect. Your kids don't have to be perfect. Your child at 4 years old doesn't have to be the most educated child in the daycare. It's not necessary. It means nothing when they're 18 or 19.
You know, one of my author role models writes, there's no such thing as a great writer. You're just a writer. And I like that, taking away that label of, you know, what is perfect or great or acceptable.
Right.
And we're just moms. I do want to give you a moment to give any special advice, guidance, or places to go for support, especially for moms of color and single moms, since that's your platform as well. Do you have special advice, guidance, or resources that you would like to call out for them?
Sure. So I have my blog. If you go to ChristineMichelCarter.com, the thing about my blog is that I find other mom writers to contribute. So you're getting a variety of different perspectives, and all of these women have their own blog most times and come together to offer resources in one place. As well as I'm an executive committee member of Mom Congress, and we have certain subcommittees broken out for Black moms and Native American moms, or moms suffering with their maternal mental health or postpartum issues. So I recommend that as well. My Forbes articles always include resources as well. I just did a piece about the legislation that works in a single mom's favor and against her, thanks to Monica and her recommendation. When it comes to advocating for yourself in the workplace, requesting remote work and flexible work, all things that I've covered in Forbes articles. I urge and encourage you to go through those. Some of them even have scripts. So as I mentioned, anytime I have the opportunity to write, I just try to be a resource. And then some of the organizations I'm affiliated with, I try to affiliate myself with the best resources for moms. I do my homework, so.
You do your homework and you are an amazing writer. We're going to make sure that we send a follow-up email. We've put your website in the chat, but we'll send a follow-up email to all the attendees today with the resources and sites that you've mentioned. You know, as we close, one of the questions I want to ask you is, you know, RevelEleven is a community where we're aspiring women to help be change, help be their best selves, help lift others and help lift the voices of others as you so eloquently do. What would be your message of change for moms right now?
I just did a piece for Essence, and I hope I remember this sentence, but what I wrote was, if there are any mothers who are practicing self-care or have resources that they are not sharing with other moms, that they are indirectly affecting and hurting another mother in their community. So change only really happens if we're willing to be vocal and stand up and share our stories and share our experiences and demand it. But if you're staying silent, if you remain isolated, if you feel alone and you do nothing to change that, change won't happen. And P.S., you're probably not the only one experiencing that specific situation that you're in dire need and desperately looking to change from. So the more that you speak up, stand up for yourself in the workplace. There are so many women in the workplace who are contemplating becoming mothers because of that mass exodus that we had to do in September of last year because of childcare. There are so many women in the workplace who are pregnant and are terrified to bring their authentic self to work because they don't want anybody to know they're pregnant and treat them differently. But if there was one person in that office who said, yeah, I've gone through some crap in here. I've demanded remote work and haven't gotten it. I've advocated for a better mother's room and haven't gotten it, but I'm not gonna stop fighting because I want change. The minute that they speak up, it makes it so much easier for those other women in the workforce. And that's how change happens.
You know, I respect that so much and I admire that so much. And one of the things that resonated with me today was when I saw you, I think it was on LinkedIn, post something about that you had to go in the bathroom to pump because you didn't have adequate quarters in the workplace. And I remember having that same experience, oh gosh, dating myself 25 years ago, right? And I thought, you know, why didn't I speak up then? Because maybe change could have happened sooner, but I chose to accept it as it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's such an honor to edify your voice and to lift and share you with our audience, because I think you are talking about things that matter and that women have kept inside for so long. And I think your bravery, your voice, your wisdom, your learned experience, it helps all of us. And so I echo what you said in encouraging the moms in community with us today, or the supporters of moms in community with us today, to continue to do that, to follow Christine, to get her books. I love her books, to give them away.
Monica, before we wrap, I just want to say, I hope that you don't say I wish about those times at all, because I respect so much what you had to put up with to be a single working mom. And I respect so much what my mother had to put up with, or my great aunts had to put up with. It's easy for me to sit here now in a room that has tech, and I have social media, and I have a voice, and I can expose that voice to millions of women. It's easy for me to stand up and be an advocate. It wasn't easy for you guys. And I really wish you guys understand that you paved the way. You had to put up with so much bull crap so that my generation of millennial moms and Gen Z moms now can say, we demand remote and flexible work. I had to watch a single Black mom raise 2 kids with no child support too, and do it. It is amazing, the women, the mothers who came before me, and the crap that you guys had to put up in the workplace. It's so thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for that, Grace. I will say, and maybe we can also end with, shouting out one of our favorite authors or people that inspires us. But I don't know if people have heard of Tara Trent. She wrote the book, The Awakened Woman, and she talks about, passing the baton and the mothers that pass the baton from generation to generation. And I think it's so important to think about what is that baton that we're passing to that next generation to help lift them and help them be better. And you are a shining example of that. Is there anyone else that inspires you that you also want to share?
Oh, sweet Lord.
So many.
Many, right? So many. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to name any because I know that I would miss some, but I will tell you that I am beyond in awe. I've been writing about moms for the past 14 years. I am so in awe over the last 3 or 4 years, the amount of women who are working on legislation, who are teaching women personal finance skills, who are creating apps and tech for working parents. It is absolutely mind-blowing, because years ago when I was saying we need remote work, we need